and fossil fuels, and boy, what a weird world we live in. Probably nothing would ever get done. Like the battle between the dummies and the people like yourself is essential. It's essential. It's the yin and yang.
The idea that the thesis, the defining, the motor of civilization and human advancement is irritation with dumb people.
I don't appreciate naps unless I work out hard. I don't appreciate vacations unless I'm just exhausted. I have to be exhausted with work to appreciate vacations.
I must say, it's one of the threads. I mean, we started talking about Infinite Monkey Cage. It's one of the threads through the whole series is a slight annoyance that we turn into something that's interesting. It generates ideas for us. I mean, we had a letter about the title, The Infinite Monkey Cage, complaining, and
you shouldn't cage monkeys.
No, that was it. It was like, it's cruel. It's cruel. It's an infinite cage. It's roomy. It's a lot of room. It's arguably the universe is an infinite cage. And then another letter came in. I think it might have been a response. So we sent that back, and they said, it's also supporting this kind of Darwinian myth, the Darwinian myth that we somehow share a common ancestor with a monkey. So how so? And he said, well, there was an experiment done that disproved all your nonsense. So we like experiments, we like evidence, so this is really interesting. What's the evidence? So we read down, and they said, there was an experiment done in a zoo in Alabama or somewhere, where they got 10 monkeys, and they gave them typewriters, and after a week, all they'd done was shit on them. So the idea that an infinite number of monkeys could write Shakespeare and all this is a myth. It's like, well, there's a difference between 10 monkeys and an infinite number of monkeys. It's not, 10 is not very close to infinity. And it's just these complaints about my friend Robin Ince, who I co-present it with, he said it's not an incremental process, this kind of infinite monkey thing. It's not like if you have 100 monkeys, then eventually they'll produce a leaflet. And then if you have 1,000, they'll do maybe a book, and then if you have 10,000, they'll do Shakespeare. And it's not, really we mean it. It's an infinite number of monkeys you need to type out the works of Shakespeare. But yeah, we enjoy the complaints. We get a lot of complaints from Deepak Chopra actually these days.
He's a silly bitch.
Isn't
that one of those things that's like one of those expressions that people always use? That if you take an infinite number of monkeys and give them typewriters, they'll type out Shakespeare, the works of Shakespeare. Is that true?
Well, it is true. It's an infinite number of monkeys.
Yeah, but even an infinite number, I think they're going to fail. They're going to fuck it up.
No,
they're monkeys.
You don't think? No.
They're still monkeys.
You were talking to me earlier about infinity.
I know, but if you get an infinite number of monkeys, if there's the same animal, they're the same exact animal, they're going to type the exact works of Shakespeare?
Well, they will, because there's an infinite number of them. So every possible combination of letterpresses must happen.
That is true,
Actually,
but would it happen? What is the odds of it happening in the exact same order of the works of Shakespeare? Is it even calculable?
Less than zero.
Less than zero.
But no, greater than zero. The odds are greater than zero. So that's
it
the
can
point.
happen.
So if you've got an infinite number of them, and then you will get everything that can possibly happen will happen.
Could you imagine if one monkey just randomly, they gave it a key, look, we're talking about the entire universe, right? So we're talking about an infinite number. But what if they just get lucky as fuck and give one monkey a typewriter, and this little dude just starts banging out the entire works of Shakespeare, but he's still a monkey. He's still like playing with his butt and, swinging around and having a good time. He's not doing anything else other than when they put him in front of this keyboard, he types out all the works of Shakespeare in exactly the right order, the exact punctuation, the exact spaces in between letters.
Well, if the universe is infinite, which it may well be, in fact, there are many ways the universe can be infinite, then that would happen. Because everything, if it's in accord with the laws of physics, then it can happen. And everything that can happen in an infinite universe will happen, because the universe is formally infinite. So I contend, and we'll probably get emails about it, but I'm trying to think whether there's any counter-argument. I don't think there is. I contend that in an infinite universe, even the most unlikely possibility must happen. In fact, formally, an infinite number of times. So maybe Shakespeare was
a monkey.
Actually just lucky.
Yeah, maybe it was someone's pet monkey.
We could calculate it. We could calculate it. Someone can do it online now, because there are how many letters are there in Shakespeare, the complete works of Shakespeare? So you can Google that. Someone will tell you. And we know you've got 26 possibilities, and so off we go. And so what's the probability? What are the odds of randomly typing on a typewriter, let's say at 1 letter per second? How long will it take, and what are the odds that you'll type out the complete words of Shakespeare? That's a known number. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it can be calculated. So that's my challenge to your viewers and listeners. Send in that email. Someone will do it. There'll be someone working at MIT or something who can do it in 5 minutes. It's an easy sum.
And then you would have to calculate how many monkeys start out with Romeo and Juliet and then just start shitting on their typewriter. They're like, they start out.
I know the answer to that is more than the other one.
And how many get the first chapter perfect and then just shit all over the place?
No, right, all
they
the
get
way
bored.
to the last word, the last single digit. And
well, I bet every keystroke along the way, there's a monkey shitting on their typewriter. Like you get like the first paragraph, shit all over the place. This guy got to the second paragraph, shit all over the place.
Yeah, and to go back to our infinite monkey cage complaint letter, that proves that Darwin's wrong. That's the logic.
Yeah.
Can I just say that if someone doesn't remember, I just came into the podcast at that point.
Oh, he doesn't. Yeah, you can't
Darwin's
cherry pick
right.
that quote.
Yeah, just
Brian Cox does not think Darwin's wrong.
That'll be in the press.
There's a great website, a Twitter handle called Take That Darwin, where people that are educationally challenged will question Darwin's theories. Like my favorite one is, if people came from monkeys, how come monkeys are still around? Like they retweet that all day because someone says that.
Fundamental misunderstanding of evolution. that really is. You're going, right, where am I going to start here? Maybe with a book.
The only way to truly test I think what we really need to do is take monkeys and give them psychedelic drugs. We need to do this. Someone needs to do this. They need to take an island where the monkeys can't escape and give them psychedelic drugs and leave them puzzles and see what they figure out.
Why does that test anything? It's just fun, isn't it? You just think
it doesn't. It would just be fun to watch.
Yeah.
There is a guy named Terence McKenna, who I'm a huge fan of, who had a theory called the stoned ape theory, and he backed it up allegedly. Remember who this is coming from, with climatological data on that time of the world, that he believes that the evolution of human beings, the big part of it, the development of the human brain, might have come from them experimenting with psychedelic mushrooms. That as the rainforest receded into grasslands, animals were forced to try new foods out because their habitat was changing, and they would climb down for these trees and flip over these cow patties to get bugs and worms and things along those lines, and that this time of the world, it was very common to have these psilocybin mushrooms growing all over the place, and that the monkeys that would eat them, he had a bunch of theories. Like, again, apparently it's been proven that in low doses, psilocybin increases visual acuity, which would make you able to see things better, which would make you a better hunter. Also makes you horny, so it would make people more likely to breed, and that would favor the people, or the monkeys rather, the subhuman primates, whatever you call them, that went along that line.
Well, it is one of the more widely accepted theories about hominin evolution, as they call it, is that climate change played a key role. And actually, there's in my latest series, Human Universe, we focused on a theory which links the climate change, particularly in the Rift Valley, because we know that the big jumps in brain size all occurred in the Rift Valley of Africa, and it's quite remarkable actually, and that's broadly speaking accepted. Although there's a lot of argument with anthropologists because the data is sparse, but it's broadly accepted that. And it seems that the big jumps in brain size occurred at times when the Earth's orbit was most elliptical. So the Earth's orbit oscillates, it becomes more elliptical and more circular, and there are many different oscillations driven by gravitational interaction with the planets, like Jupiter in particular. And it seems like when the Earth's orbit's most elliptical, the rate of climate change in the Rift Valley is higher and more extreme. And it seems to be the case that there's relatively strong evidence for the case that when you get these really rapid times of climate change, as you mentioned, then you get increases in brain size, and therefore increases in intelligence. There's a big one, 1.8 million years ago, which was a very big increase in the number of species in the Rift Valley, of which Homo erectus was one of them, which eventually led to us. And a big jump in brain size as well. And this was at a time when there's strong evidence for rapid climate change in that region.
So that makes sense. Like the adaptability of these animals, experimenting with new food sources, trying out new hunting methods. A lot of them changed from herbivore to omnivore. A lot of the primates that were observed, right?
Well, that's where it gets controversial when you look at the academic research, because the sort of Darwinian idea that so you get this pressure from climate change, but then what's the selection effect? Because climate change happens over many generations, it doesn't happen over one generation. So the question is, well, what actually is doing the selecting? What are we selecting for? Why is this group more likely to breed and be more successful if it's more intelligent? So some people say, well, it's because they were forced into groups. So it's group dynamics. It's the fact that you end up with bigger tribes, hundreds of individuals cooperating together, and that's what's been selected for, and you need to be intelligent for that. Some people say, as you said, that it's adaptability, so maybe they have to learn to go fishing, or they have to learn to eat the particular different crops, and then maybe that's
Right.
So that's a big area of debate about what might have been the selection pressure, this precise selection pressure. But it does seem pretty nailed down that climate change, certainly in that region of Africa, in Ethiopia and Tanzania and through the Rift Valley, had played a role in driving us towards intelligence. And it's interesting that the time scale is very small, by the way. I mean, so you go back 4 million years, and things like Australopithecus are around, which are basically upright chimpanzees. Their brain is not much bigger than a modern-day chimp. But then you go to 200,000 years ago, and that's when Homo sapiens first emerged, just over 200,000 years, which is not very long ago. And it's quite remarkable, actually. And the modern theory is they spread out of Africa about 60,000 years ago, and they made it into Europe about 43,000 years ago or so, into North America and South America only 15,000 years ago. So it's quite a rapid spread. And the fact that we've only been around as a species for at most 250,000 years, 1/4 million years, is quite remarkable, I think.
Well, when you think about what we've accomplished, I was flying into Los Angeles last night, and I was thinking, if you could take the pioneers that came from Europe in the 17 and 1800s, the guys who were on those wagons with the wooden wheels, and they're pulling them with horses across the country trying to see